All right, everyone. Welcome back for another episode of the Mark and Austin Show on the Lesko Pod. One thing that we're going to be doing different this week is I'm going to try to upload this to YouTube. So we will have the video up on YouTube. I'm just using my laptop camera right now, so the quality of my video is not that good. Austin's is much better because he has an actual camera. But I just kind of want to get into YouTube and start getting videos up so that you can watch it both ways, which would be cool, and just kind of get my feet wet with YouTube. So something new you guys can look for. Austin, welcome back. Thanks again for joining me, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's a pleasure is all mine.
We have a few stories to talk about this week. As we've said before, we're doing this bi-weekly, so we have more storylines. Being that it is off season, it's a little slower. Always tons of news to talk about, but we just have more storylines bi-weekly than weekly. Plus, we want to get our health talk episodes in there too, because that's just something we think would benefit the listeners. Austin, to start out with, I'll just go down through the list. Big Ten and Fox kind of in, I guess, deal negotiations right now. It looks like NBC or ABC might be picking up the Big Ten for a pretty hefty price. We'll talk about those numbers coming up. PSU has a new offensive analyst. They have quite a few analysts now. And as I was asking Austin before we started recording, are there other schools that do that? Yes, there is. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State all have tons of analysts on both sides of the ball, which is very important. I know Penn State last year had a guy, he was from the Jets. He was one of their offensive analysts. Another story, offensive and defensive guys in the NFL. I'll just say this right now. Penn State is the first school ever to have a Penn State Offensive Player of the Year and a Penn State Defensive Player of the Year, being Saquon Barkley and Michael Parsons, which is really, really cool. A big storyline, I think, a very underrated storyline, something that a lot of people didn't know. And another point about that is they're both from Pennsylvania. So two absolute freaks that we have seen come through college football in the past few years, like two of the best players I've ever seen play college football. Both came from Pennsylvania, both came through Penn State. I mean, just think of all the schools that those guys could have gone. Well, not Saquon because he wasn't really recruited that heavily, but just think about after all of said and done, how many schools these guys could have gone to. They could have gone to any school they wanted to in the country. Michael Parsons, we've talked about this before. He was almost going to Ohio State and Kirk Herbstreit screwed it up. You know, that's pretty funny. So he had to come to Penn State. Even though Penn State was already one of his schools, he couldn't go to Ohio State because of something that Kirk Herbstreit did with violation of NCAA, trying to recruit him in. He couldn't go to Ohio State. He had to forfeit his ability to go there. So pretty cool storyline there. We have the numbers of some of these new guys. During Thon, they did like their dance. The football team does a dance, like as all sports teams do. And they saw some of the numbers for some of these key players that just came in, which is awesome because that's something we wanted to know. It's kind of a funny way to find out. But I don't believe we've talked about the Thursday night opener. Penn State's game was moved back 2 days to Thursday night against Purdue. It's going to be a primetime game on Fox. I believe it's going to be on Fox if they get their new deal. Either way, it's going to be primetime television, first football game of the season, just like Ohio State and Minnesota was last year when they opened up the season. Minnesota was supposed to be really good. They turned out not to be, but Ohio State it was a good game, but Ohio State ultimately won. So that'll be Penn State and Purdue because Purdue is a good, going into next season, supposed to be a good team. Penn State's supposed to be a good team too. It's supposed to be a good matchup. So that's cool that they're going to have the season opener because Penn State, they never really do that. They're never the first game of the season. We've talked about before how they used to do like the kickoff classic where they would literally play it at Penn State because Penn State was just a powerhouse in like the 90s, like Alabama is now. They would have the kickoff classic in Beaver Stadium and State College, be like 3 versus 4. So that's what they're doing again this season, which is awesome. I love to see Penn State as a primetime opener because as far as I'm concerned, they're a brand name in this sport. They're one of the biggest programs in the sport, so they should be in these primetime games. And to start the season is great. Excited to see how they play. I just hope they make the right moves in a game like that and going forward, especially at the quarterback position. and the playoff expansion. We're going to talk about that. So to start off, Austin and I were just going through the numbers. Austin, I'll just let you break it down. We're not sure exactly who is going to sign with the Big Ten, but we did hear that it's going to be a $1.1 billion signing deal for whoever picks up the Big Ten, whoever picks up the Big Ten. So to break those numbers down, there's 14 teams in the Big Ten. Each team is going to get $78.5 million from this deal. Now, what's funny about that is schools like Rutgers, Indiana, who haven't been good in the past couple of years, like the lower schools, Maryland, they're getting the same amount as Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, just because they're in the Big Ten. So that's why when the Big Ten expanded, when they did, because they first they added Penn State, which made it 11, and then they added Nebraska, then they added the other schools. So that's one thing about when you expand your conference is these schools get this money too. So it benefits them really more than anything, because the schools that they've added, besides Penn State, really hasn't added much to the Big Ten conference. Let's just be real. So that's a huge thing for those schools, but that's a ton of money. And I'll let Austin kind of dive into that and where we think the Big Ten will be signing basically their broadcast rights too. So
Yeah. Obviously the current deal that they have now is with Fox. That's for about $440 million per year. I believe the course of that is 6 years. According to a news source that I was reading earlier, it looks like NBC is going to be a big player in this as well, with Fox, maybe ESPN as well. I believe ESPN has the rights to the SEC and that kind of stuff as well, which is going to, again, their contract is up in a few years afterwards, and that'll be a mega deal with Texas and Oklahoma going there and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you bring up a good point, that one, you're getting a lot of money just for being in the Big Ten. Again, with that reported potential asking price of $1.1 billion payout per year. The other thing is this, and this is actually a reason as to why it was probably a pretty good monetary advantage to bring in a school like Rutgers and a school like Maryland. Now, did they dominate on the football field? No, they've been kind of the bottom of the East here for a while. But what they do is they give you conference reach and interest in those media markets. So we're talking Rutgers, we're talking New Jersey, New York. We're talking Maryland. We're talking Maryland, maybe Delaware, etc. So in that sense, that expansion of the range might be very, very helpful and is probably been a factor in the fact of these deals being so lucrative for the Big Ten and their programs. So good on them for doing the expansion, adding these folks. I think that needs to be noted. The other thing that I will say is, I don't know if it's going to be Fox. I don't know if it's going to be ESPN. I don't know who it's going to be, NBC, whomever. It's really going to go to the highest bidder. It's really it. Money drives this industry. I don't really think the Big Ten or Penn State or Ohio State or any of the schools in it really give a crap if it's NBC or if it's ABC or if it's CBS or Fox or whomever. Whatever's padding their bank account the most is going to be it. So I think that's really the bottom line. It's going to be down to those negotiations and who can make the best offer and all that kind of thing. But overall, positive news for Penn State, positive news for all the programs that are within the Big Ten. And, I think it's something that needs to be noted because it's a lot of money per year that these programs are getting from this TV deal.
Yeah, that's definitely a large number, 1.1 billion. That's an insane amount of money, even for something like this. So whoever does get the Big Ten is going to be paying a hefty price, and the Big Ten is going to fully benefit from that. Each school getting $70 million. I'm pretty sure every season, Penn State, for example, like when they're good, they see like a 60, 70, $80 million profit or like payout at the end of the season because of everything, tickets, just sales for everything, clothing, food, whatever it may be. Basically, the better you do, the more money you're going to make. So to get like a season's worth of pay, and this is per season too, this figure. So to get a season's pay on top of what you're already making just from your performance on the field is great. So that's a huge storyline. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Austin, that takes us into the playoff expansion. One thing that the NCAA has been talking about, I think we talked about this in like our first episode in September, is the playoff expansion possibly going to 8 teams. They talked about it. And then at the end, they're just like, yeah, we're not going to do it. So why they kept talking about that and why they kept throwing it out there, I don't know. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe you do, but they just kind of threw water on the fire and just put it out, and that was it. I would like to see an 8 team playoff, possibly 12. But what I would like to see before that happens is Penn State make the 4-team playoff first. Be one of those teams that made the 4-team playoff before they do this expansion. And at this point, if they don't, before 2026, make the 4-team playoff, then changes need to be made because there, at this point, there's no reason for us not to make it. So I'm glad that it didn't happen for that reason, because I want to see Penn State make the 4-team playoff first and not just use the 8 playoff entrants as a crutch to just get in, because I can see them trying to do that. Yeah, you want to make the playoff, but just for me personally, I just want to see them make the 4-team. But overall, I would say that, again, like we just talked about, probably came down to money. Does it make them more money right now? I don't know. Maybe it didn't. There's a lot of moving parts with that. But the thing with this 8-team playoff is you're going to see teams that aren't deserving of getting into the 4-team playoff get into the playoff, they are deserving to be in the playoff for college football. But does that ultimately mean more money? I don't know. It must not have, because I think if it did, they probably would have jumped right on it. But I would like to see, like this year, who barely didn't get in. Ohio State. Okay, so if Ohio State gets into the playoff this year, they're probably going on, they might even make the national championship. So it's just, and I believe Utah was one of those teams also that was right outside the 4-team playoff. So yeah, for competition and entertainment, absolutely. You want to see that happen, because Penn State, even if they're the 8th team in, to have a shot is to have a shot. And on top of that, we see less guys leaving early for the draft. So like leaving early, not playing in their bowl game, because if you have a shot at a national title, you're not declaring early for the NFL. It doesn't matter. So I would like to see, because if Ohio State gets into the playoff this year and they play Georgia, they might win. I don't know, because Ohio State is better than Michigan. Let's just be honest. They're better than Michigan. They probably would have done better than Georgia. So it is what it is. Competition wise, entertainment wise, would have been nice, because as we've said before, the first playoff, it was Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, and Alabama. I believe it was like Oregon 1, Florida State 3, Alabama 2, Penn State or Ohio State 4. And Ohio State, as the last seed in the first playoff, won the national championship. So the last seed has a shot, and that's been proven. That was proven the first year by a Big Ten team, which was cool to see. That team was stacked, but regardless, the last seed has a shot. So, Austin, what did you think about them not doing the expansion, and why do you think they didn't do it?
Yeah. Man, I don't know why they didn't do it, to be honest with you. I find it very hard to believe that the analytics wouldn't show that it generates more revenue. It's an extra game and it's an extra playoff game. So, as far as TV deals and things, like, I mean, those ratings got to be good. It's got to be an extra great rating weekend of games. So I don't really see. I don't get why they didn't do it. I don't have a good answer for that. I would have done it. I think it's good for the sport. I think it makes it more fair. I think it's more inclusive. It gives more teams opportunities um, at a national title and to go compete against some of the best teams in the country. Um, and frankly, I know other teams just have to find a way to overcome this and change the narrative, but the SEC has a stranglehold on the playoff and national championships. They're putting two teams in pretty much every season, and they've won. I don't even know how many of the last 10. Like damn near all of them, aside from what Ohio State in 14, and then Clemson twice, and who else has it been? It's been Alabama a lot. It's been Georgia this past season. It's been LSU once with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Like, who else has it been? The last team I can think of that was an SEC team, before then, was Florida State in 13. But then 2012, I think that might have been the last BCS year. That was Alabama. Or no, sorry, 13 was the last BCS year, but 12, that was Alabama yet again. So, as far as the playoff competition and things, I think it would just be better. It'd be more fair, it'd be more inclusive. It would be more lucrative and beneficial to more institutions across a myriad of conferences. So I was for it. I think probably eight's a good number. I know they were floating the idea of like 12. I don't know why they would go from 4 to 12. I mean, that's a jump. I think eight makes sense. I don't know why eight wouldn't make sense. You got 5 Power 5 conferences. Take the 5 champions. Take 3 at larges. Whatever. Or take 2 at larges and pick the group of 5 champ, the best team from the group of 5. Whatever you want to do. I'm fine with any of those things, but I think that makes sense. I think that provides value to the season, that provides value in doing well in conference play, that provides value for winning your conference title because it guarantees you a spot. I just think it makes everything matter just a little bit more as far as that's concerned. So, I don't know. I don't have a good reason why they did it. I'll kind of just blame it on what I usually blame things like this on: negligence and incompetence in the administration. That's the best I got. I don't know if that's correct, but that's kind of where I'm looking right now.
Yeah. Like, to look at the final rankings, it was Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati, and then Notre Dame, Ohio State, Baylor, Ole Miss. I believe that was the final rankings. Am I right about that, Austin? Am I looking at the right thing here?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
Not
so
sure. Where was what was Utah ranked? I know they won a bunch of games there at the end.
Utah was 11, it looked like.
Okay.
But I thought they were higher than that because they were in the Rose Bowl, but that's the way the Rose Bowl works, is the
Conference, the Pac-10 or Pac-12
Pac-12 champions get in. So, for example, this year, not to harp on this too much, but ended up Alabama, Michigan, Georgia, Cincinnati, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Baylor, Ole Miss. So Ole Miss would have played Alabama. Good game. Baylor would have played Michigan. Another good game. Ohio State would have played Georgia. And then it would have been Notre Dame, Cincinnati. Dude, those are great games. A whole way down the board, man.
I'd watch them. I'd watch them all.
Great games. Do we end up with the same top 4? Yeah, probably. Unless Ohio State gets in there. Of those teams, I would say Ole Miss had a shot against Alabama. And then Ohio State has a shot against Georgia. But, dude, those are great games. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I got Clay Travis originally from Outkick, kind of came up with this idea. The NFL, what they need to do is they kind of need to take the March Madness method, where they need to put every game, every NFL game, every week on every channel that's available to most people, which is like PNT, TBS, USA, ESPN, NBC, ABC, Fox. Put each game on each channel so that everybody can watch every single game every week, rather than have these like Sunday ticket deals and all this stuff. Have every game on a different channel. It's more profit for the NFL. It's more profit for each of those companies. I mean, you're signing mega deals with each one of those platforms to air an NFL game. Do the same thing with the college football playoff. You could make it 16 teams if you want. But for right now, if it's 8, put each one of those games on a different channel. Fox, ESPN, CBS, NBC, ABC, give each one a game. And it's more money, man. So yeah, I think as with most things, like you said, I think it just came down to negligence, incompetence. Like, why can't we get a deal done? I don't know, but that's our idea. Make it 8 teams, and it's more profit. It's more entertainment. Who doesn't want to see more playoff games in college football, man? Because you know what? At the end of the day, Ohio State gets a shot. Like I just gave those examples, but we probably still end up with the same top 4, unless Michigan is beat by Baylor, which is possible. And it's just better. You want to reward these top teams. It's better for recruiting if you're in the playoffs. So either way, Penn State's not getting in this year. But man, just think about certain years. Okay, if they had a playoff, 05. Penn State, I think, in 05 was the best team in college football. I think they could have beaten USC or Texas if they played the national title. Imagine if they had a 14 playoff then. That would have been awesome. 08, when Penn State was good again, they ended up number 3, I think. No, they didn't end up number 3. But I believe that year they probably still would have been in the playoff had they. And I think if Penn State goes undefeated that year or is in a playoff, I think they can beat Oklahoma or Florida. They were a stacked team. So, yeah, that's our opinion. Like I said, as long as Penn State can make the 14 playoff next year, and then they can expand it after that, I don't care. But I just want to see Penn State make the 14 playoff. So I'll let Austin talk about this. Penn State hired a new offensive analyst, and what are they up to now, Austin? You said 7?
I think they had 3 previously, and then Franklin got his new contract with more of that money to be allocated for resources for staff and all this kind of stuff. And then he hired 3 more. That was Dan Connor, that was Gabe Infante, and that was I can't remember the other guy's name, but there's 3 hired there. Now this new addition just got added. Frank Leonard, who has ties to Steve Adazio, particularly when he was at Boston College. He crossed paths with Phil Troutwine there, the offensive line coach. Troutwine was actually a grad assistant under him for a couple of seasons, 13 to 15. So, and obviously if people were paying attention, so they were there when they played Penn State in the Pinstripe Bowl in 14, our first bowl back from sanctions. Again, offensive analyst with a particular skill set on the offensive line and tight ends. And the one thing I will say about Boston College is their offensive line was very solid. And their tight ends are solid as well. And especially from a blocking perspective, run blocking in particular. So, being as it was this season, as far as those being some pretty paramount struggles with this football team for Penn State, I think this was another good addition. Again, you can never really have, too many good educated perspectives on analyzing film and looking at tape and diagnosing defenses and offensive schemes and defensive schemes and different strategies on how to attack and how to defend different programs and things. All these things are so important. And as previously stated, we're finally joining the Alabamas and the Clemsons and the Ohio States that have, 6, 7, 8 analysts on staff. Like they have so many analysts on their staffs to help the coaching staff with all this preparatory work, and these types of things. It's so helpful to have your analysts be able to break down tape and bring up clips and show the team and show the coaches and all this stuff. It's so helpful. So it's good to see that Franklin's doing this. He's obviously moving very aggressively with his newfound staff resources, as far as bringing in more staff, bringing in more analysts, making a big splashy hire with a guy like Manny Diaz. They've given him more flexibility from a money perspective to go out and get guys.
Yeah, that's the thing that
it's good to see him doing that, and I think this will only help.
Yeah, that's the thing that I explain to people is Franklin's new deal opens up a lot of doors, and with that comes allocation money, and that's what Franklin wanted, because at the end of the day, Franklin's a Pennsylvania guy. He played at East Stroudsburg. He's a huge Penn State fan. This is his dream job. So yeah, no shit, he wants a 10-year deal worth it. Honestly, man, I don't think he really cared about how much money he got. He did, but more than anything, he cared about how much he got and then how much was put into allocation money, because believe it or not, Penn State is still suffering from the sanctions, from the Sandusky scandal, and they have been extremely cheap with the money they've put towards new facilities, everything that entails. So this is what happens when you put more money into the program. Now, I'm sure a lot of these donors, it started when they fired Joe Paterno, got mad and stopped donating money, which I don't blame them. But at the end of the day, Penn State's been cheap. And with this new deal comes stuff like this, hiring new analysts, because, dude, at the end of the day, man, like I said, I believe it was our last episode, bring these famous alumni back, have them on the sideline, have them coaching these kids. Penn State football has some of the most famous college football players ever in college football. Kajana Carter, Kerry Collins, LeVar Arrington, Courtney Brown, Joe Jaravicius, Kyle Brady. The list goes on and on and on. Paul Posluszny. They have some of the best players ever. So bring these guys on, pay them money to coach these kids. And like I said before, Miami, they have Ed Reed standing on the sideline. That's something I love to see, is these legendary players coaching these new kids. That helps with recruiting. So hopefully this new money brings more guys like Dan Connor back. Nate Stupar, he's a State College guy. Bring him back, So Matt Millen, Matt Millen owned an NFL franchise. He was the GM. Bring him in, So, yeah. Don't mean to go on a rant, but I'm just kind of building off of what Austin was talking about. Austin, do you think that was a key hire? You think it was a good hire? Like, do you think that speaks well for the program? Obviously having more analysts does, but this guy specifically?
Like I said, I can only speak very generally about this particular guy. I don't know too much about him. I can just look at the statistics and the analytics of what his teams did when he was there, and he has the relationship with Troutwine and all these types of things, and the area of expertise that he facilitated. So again, offensive line and tight ends, and again, Boston College had pretty good play and performance on the field from those guys during his time there, and under Coach Adazio in general. So it certainly is not going to hurt. Is it going to be a game-changing hire? I don't know if you can't really call a non-coaching staff member, game-changing. It's not like an Elijah Robinson hire or something like that. Like that would have been game-changing in my opinion.
Yeah.
But do I think it adds to the collective and feeds into the narrative that Franklin always talks about as far as, competing every second of every day of every week of every month of every year, yada yada, the whole thing. Given 110% all the time just to get 1% closer and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think it does. I think it helps close that gap from a staffing resource perspective. That's just critical. Not just for you bringing in all these additional analysts, which is great in general as far as game planning and all these things, but also to show that he actually does have more money to throw around as far as adding to his staff, and that's really important. That's gonna keep paying dividends down the road as Penn State needs to hire new coaches as some of these guys leave, which they inevitably will.
Right.
That's just the nature of the beast. If you're hiring good coaches, especially positional coaches, they're probably going to either get promoted by you or to leave to go become a coordinator. It's probably going to happen if they're really worth their salt. And in the same breath, you have great coordinators and they're doing really, really well. They're probably going to get a head coaching job somewhere. That's generally kind of how this goes. So that's just something that is really important. And the other thing too, with a lot of this, extra money and the as far as the board and the university investing more into the program for renovations and all these types of things, I know they haven't been in Lash at all because it's under renovation. They approved that $48 million renovation plan package for the Lash building. So I know they've been practicing in Haluba Hall the whole time here. I think they're getting. I think it's a brand new weight room, and I don't know if it's in addition onto the weight room and some others. Like they're doing a lot of stuff over there, so much so that they can't even practice there. So they're doing a lot of work here, and it's going to take time. But I think they're with this new deal. It was evidence to me that they bought in and they are willing to be more aggressive with their pursuit of playing catch up and equalizer with these other top programs. And I think that's all Franklin wanted. I really do. I think we're in a good spot there as far as allocating funds for facilities. I think we're doing a better job there, a more adequate job. But the next big area, and James Franklin will be the first to tell you, is what is Penn State going to do from a program perspective and a university perspective on how they are going to incentivize NIL for athletes, because they have done next to nothing. And a lot of schools are way ahead already. So they need to get that plan and they need to execute the plan. It needs to be an actionable plan. They have to create some action here. We need to see them institute a plan and really market that and all this kind of stuff. Because if you're a big name player, you're going to warrant a hefty sum for NIL. So you want to be an institution that has the capability to market that and to give the players that opportunity. Because if you can, you'll be in the mix more often and you'll win more often of those battles for the top guys in the country. It's that simple.
So what do they need to do to be in line with other schools for NIL?
They need to be more aggressive with using, particularly like the guys on their board, these big, corporate types, these corporate titans, these corporate heads, these millionaire folks, to get deals, to get business deals, get sponsorship deals, to get all these things. And then also have some grassroots stuff, have some small businesses, have some businesses from the players' hometowns, have some local state college businesses buy in, all these types of things. As far as that goes, have a team coalition fund where on the baseline, you get the boosters and your top donors and things. They basically pay money, donate money into a slush fund, and that gets dispersed to athletes on the teams for NIL. So all your scholarship athletes get X amount of dollars per month or per year or however you want to run it, just right off the rip, just for coming to your institution. Do I like how Wild West it is right now? No, I don't. I think there needs to be more rules and regulations, and there needs to be some semblance of structure. I mean, it's total crapshoot right now. Like, seems like anybody can do anything, basically buy people's commitments. Like, okay, let's chill. Now, what I wouldn't suggest doing is holding your breath, because all that stuff has to come from the NCAA. And as you and I both know, and as everybody listening to this show knows, is they are completely incompetent, and they're not even a real organization as far as I'm concerned. So I wouldn't hold your breath for them to do any type of meaningful action anytime soon. But it sure would be nice if there would be some structure and some parameters on what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, what are reasonable things, etc. But they should be able to do this again. They, for God's sakes, they got the Smeal College of Business, one of a phenomenal business school in university. You mean to tell me we can't come up with a good plan for NIL to market themselves? Come on. Like, I don't buy it. I think they have the infrastructure to do it. They got plenty of smart people. They have enough boosters, that they do have enough money. They just got to ask for it. They got to ante up. They got to ask for it. And they got to put together a good proposal on how it helps the program, how it helps the kids, and all this other stuff. I don't think it's that hard, but they better get on it, because the longer we wait, the farther behind they're getting.
So, like, I feel like, Nike, Gatorade, whoever, I feel like they're going to follow the athlete. So, like, Drew Aller, like, no matter what, that kid's probably going to be getting some good NIL deals. So where did you see that Penn State's kind of behind the ball? Because, I mean, I'm assuming Franklin is on top of it, but he's probably not getting support with that. But yeah, I would imagine. I know facility wise they're behind. I know that. But like, where did you see this at there?
Well, it's not like a source that's saying Penn State is behind. It's the fact that James Franklin, when asked or when brought up, the state of the program and his thoughts, the first thing he brings up is, we have to address NIL. We do not have a sufficient plan for NIL. He's literally telling you. He's straight up telling you. The one thing I'll say about James Franklin is he seems like he's a pretty straight shooter. He doesn't really seem like he plays this smoke and mirror games or any of this nonsense. He just tells you NIL is not where he wants it to be, which means it's not at a championship level, because he wants everything to be at a championship level. He said this countless times. And then you look at like the Quinn Ewers deals, or you look at what's his face, the one quarterback for Alabama that hasn't even played a down or anything, like these $1 million deals and things. Did you hear that Drew Aller had $1 million deal? Did you hear that Nick Singleton had a big deal? Are you hearing anything from any Penn State football player about a lucrative NIL deal?
No.
That's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point.
They better get that straightened out. I mean, that just speaks to Franklin's recruiting. So for everybody out there that's complaining about Franklin, he's a hell of a recruiter at the very least. So, I mean, who is it? Sandy Barber? Who is it that's like?
Well, so it's obviously the athletic department has to approve stuff, but it's really about going to the donors of the university, going to the boosters, going to the board of trustees, having them pull strings. Because, for God's sakes, I don't even know if he's still there, but he's either a current trustee or a former trustee in Ken Frazier, who was literally like the head guy at Merck for decades. Mega millionaire. And obviously Merck, a very lucrative pharmaceutical company, also known as Big Pharma. Like these are the guys, these are the deep pocket guys that you need to do. So whether that's doing more meet and greets or you're whatever, you get James Franklin involved. I'm sure he has no problem going to events and pitching it to boosters and deep pocket people and to get donors and to get money and all. I'm sure he has no problem with doing that because it helps the program. It also helps the players. It just helps. And he's a people guy. He's a conversationalist. He's great. He's really good at communicating when he wants to. Like they have to get back some of what they lost because of how the sanctions were handled and all these types of things. I mean, I've heard countless stories of back in the day where, we needed money for a renovation. And Joe Paterno would literally pick up the telephone and call these deep pocket donors that he knew for years and years and years and years of being head coach. And, it would be like, okay, all right, Joe, I hear what we're trying to do. Well, I'll give you $1 million. And then he'd say, nah, come on, you can do better than that. Okay, I'll give you $2 million. So, it's that kind of thing. It's a little bit, you got to be a little bit of a schmoozer, I guess you could say. But that's what it is. I mean, again, all these guys, Terry Pagula, that's the kind of deep pocket money you need to be on. Somebody that will give you $100 million and say, I want you to build a hockey arena and have a competitive, intercollegiate hockey team, not just intramural and club. Like, I want you to have a real hockey program. Boom. Here's the money. Build the stadium. Name it after me. And there you go. You have a hockey program. Like that.
Yep.
From one person.
Yep.
So that's what they got to do because it's, you look at a lot of these other programs and even after all the lack of success they've had on the football field, you look at a program like Texas, there's so much booster money down there. It's insane. It's insane. It's crazy. Just millions of dollars just coming out of the clear blue sky, basically, as far as booster dollars. It's insanity. So they need to get on it. They need to get on it quick because they're falling behind. They're falling behind. I want to start hearing Drew Aller has a $500,000 NIL deal. I want to start hearing this stuff because this is important. Whether you agree or disagree, this is where we are. This is where college football is at. This is a part of the game now. So you got to learn how to play it. You better figure it out or you're going to be left behind. And Penn State's been behind already. They haven't even caught up yet. And now they could risk getting farther behind in a completely new area. They need to grab this by the horns and be progressive and be innovative and be creative. And they need to pioneer the next frontier that is NIL. That's what they have to do.
Yeah, the thing about like Penn State Pagola, he owns the Sabres and the Bills. And I know for a fact that he's a multi-billionaire. One of his friends when I was in Connecticut was one of my clients. I know for a fact he's a multi-billionaire. So, yeah, it's whatever it is, man, they need to get that figured out because that is an extremely important part right now. Penn State is behind the ball. Starts with facility renovations. Lash building is under works. I was talking to one of my friends from the gym who worked for the team for years, and he just mentioned how, the facilities are just they're way behind. And he's an Alabama fan, and he goes without saying, but Alabama's facilities are ridiculous. They have everything. So that's something they certainly need to turn around. And that's one thing that Joe could do, is just make a call. And I'll say this too about, we were talking earlier about the SEC and its dominance. What it comes down to, man, is coaching. Like, these coaches, what made, back in like the 80s and 90s, when Penn State was the dynasty like Alabama is today, it came down to coaching. Joe Paterno was an extremely good coach. He took 3-star recruits, put them in the NFL. SEC, the reason they're so dominant, I hear people saying stuff like, oh, like they're breeding football players down there, like they got something in the water, they're taking steroids. Like, it comes down to coaching. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to coaching. These coaches are good. Ed Orgeron, whether it was one and done or not, man, that's one of the best college football teams ever. Nick Saban, who is a Joe Paterno protege, great coach. That's why they're doing so good. It comes down to coaching, man. Urban Meyer, Ryan Day, good coaches. That's what it comes down to. James Franklin, is he the best game day coach? No. But overall, as a recruiter and everything, he's the guy you want. And when it comes to this NIL stuff, man, and dominance, it comes down to the coach. So he's the head man. I think he's going to get it done. And that's what it's going to come down to, man, because to think that we're behind on NIL at Penn State, it honestly makes me kind of sick, because that shouldn't be the case. We shouldn't be behind in that. And to go to the playoff right now with all of this stuff going on, like, let's say we make the playoff in the next couple of years. Do you think that NIL stuff is just going to work its way out? Yeah. Winning solves everything. So I really hope they get that straightened out, because I know how important that is. And I know how important facility upgrades are, and how far behind Penn State is, because I'm around, I drive past these facilities every single day, and I know they're behind. But I hope they get it done. Do you think that they get this stuff straightened out in a timely manner?
Well, the timely manner is going to be that's going to be really the question. I think we're on it. We have a good start, at least with the facility side of things, and obviously Franklin has gotten more staff money, hence the analyst. So that's a really good start. Okay, very good start, but it can't be the end of it. I guess the part that just is really frustrating to me, and this isn't particular to Penn State, this would be any institution, and there are other institutions just like Penn State that maybe hasn't really done all that much with NIL and all this kind of stuff. Now, one, I think it's a mistake, and two, it's just frustrating to me that you have an institution like a college university that is full of incredibly intelligent individuals, especially in the fields of marketing, finance, and business, and all these types of things. And something like NIL comes up, and you don't have anything that resembles a plan. You have nothing. You have all these intelligent people at your disposal, employed at your university, these PhDs in all these fields that are literally perfect and directly translatory towards something like NIL, and nothing's ready. You have nothing. I think that's disgraceful. I think that's ludicrous. I think that's absolutely obscene. How can this be? And the one thing that I haven't heard anybody doing, and I think it would be a great idea, is okay, let's get them these good deals, but then on the flip side, let's also teach them and set them up with people that are basically like investments managers. Okay, you're making a bunch of money. You're a kid. You're an 18 to 22-year-old kid. Let's not blow it on dumb stuff. Because guess what? You still might not make the NFL. You could have a career-ending injury. You don't know. So let's teach you, and we will help you invest money intelligently to grow that over time and set you up so that you'll be comfortable and that that you have money coming in perpetuity, just accruing interest over time. That's so incredibly important. That's like the number one reason of why a lot of top athletes, they end up broke, is because they blow all this money. And people say, well, they had $100 million. Well, there's some outlandish stuff you can do in this world, and you can run dry, you can bleed dry $100 million. You need to be intelligent with it. You need to be investing intelligently. You need to be managing these funds appropriately. And all these things. These kids don't have any of these skills to know how to do this. So, that's a big area. I haven't seen it done. So if anybody from, wants to show this to Penn State in the program, do that. I'll take credit. I'll take 1% interest in perpetuity of commission pay for that. That's fine. I'll take that for being the one that brought it up.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. But I think that'd be a great addition, because I think that's incredibly important. But I'm kind of one of those people that this. The listeners may not, but I'm one of those people that really thinks things through and always keeps the long game in perspective. You have to. Again, you're 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, maybe. Like, you got a long, long, long life ahead of you, hopefully. You can't miss the forest for the trees. You gotta look down the road too. You can't just look 2 feet in front of your face. So that's an idea that I think that would be helpful. So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, because you mentioned it before, and you speak about the business school. Yeah, they have to be taught also how to handle this money, because if you're 17, 18, you got $1 million, man, if you're not taught the right things, or someone's not holding that for you, you're blowing that before you even graduate. Just because you're a 5-star recruit doesn't mean anything. And I'll give you an example real quick. Dorial Green Beckham. He's one of the best high school recruits ever. Class of 2012. He was a receiver. He was literally an NFL receiver in high school. He was 6'5", 237. I mean, I'm sure you remember his highlight tape, but he was a freak. He's literally one of the best high school players I've ever seen play football. He was a receiver, went to Missouri. Dude, he was so good. He got released from the team from Missouri in 2014, and he was still a second-round pick in 2015. He wasn't even on a college team. That's how good this kid was. So, again, that's just an example of just because you're a 5-star recruit coming into Penn State, it doesn't mean you're going to make it to the NFL. So, yeah, it's you have to be smart with and there's a lot of moving parts. The NIL, it's meant to be confusing. That's exactly what it is. I think this would just put Joe Paterno in the grave, honestly, if he was still around with this NIL stuff.
It's too ambiguous. It's too vague. It's too general. There's too much stuff that's just open to interpretation, and it can mean any number of. It basically means whatever the hell you want it to mean. You mean to tell me that people aren't going to take advantage of that fact? Of course they are, because everyone's looking for an advantage. That's how this whole thing works.
Yeah. I mean, Dabo Sweeney's one of the many coaches that's come out and said, we need to get it. This NIL stuff needs to be straightened out, because it's going to ruin college football, pretty much is what they're saying. So, at the end of the day, Penn State needs to get on top of it, man. And I don't want to harp on it too much, but they just, that's an important part that they have to get ahead of right now. And if they don't, man, they're going to be behind. And nightmare scenario, these new guys, they transfer out. It's almost like a Christian Hackenberg situation. If the NIL is that far behind at Penn State, there has to be a plan in place, because I don't see them getting these high caliber guys coming here unless there's something planned out, because not everybody's Christian Hackenberg, where they're going to stay committed to Penn State and come even though they're facing death penalty sanctions potentially. I don't know that that's what Drew Aller and Singleton did. There has to be a plan in place. I'm assuming there is. Because why else would they come here? You know?
Well, I mean, like you said, unless they're getting looks and offers on their own merits, I mean that's possible because I think they will both be big time players. It's just again when you have the brand that Penn State has and the reach that it has and the largest living alumni base and all this stuff, use it. I want to see more. I want to see more being more active on every platform. That's television commercials. That's social media stuff. Like, get on it. I'm disappointed with where it's at. It should be better than what it is. It should be up there with any other program, and it's not. So I don't know what the hang up is. I don't know what the problems are on the inside, but I mean, this has gotta get done.
Yeah, it's man, even if they this sounds funny, but even if they started like a GoFundMe and Penn State alumni could just donate to it, and this is NIL deal stuff, give this money to whoever, man, like plenty of alumni would do that, so yeah, but going forward, we hope it improves for Penn State because we need that and we need these high caliber players coming here if we want to win and go to the playoff. That's it. So, like I said before, Austin, I think it's a huge story that Penn State is the first school that had an offensive defensive rookie of the year in the NFL. Both freaks, absolute freaks of athletes, and they're both from Pennsylvania. I mean, for me, one thing about Penn State is it gives me a lot of pride because I'm an alumni. I grew up here. I've been a Penn State fan my whole life. My dad works at the library. Penn State football is in my blood. So to not only see this for Penn State, but to see that they're from Penn State, or I'm sorry, Penn State and Pennsylvania. Dude, they're both from Pennsylvania. That's insane. I think that's a huge I think that's a huge story. That's something to be proud of if you're a Pennsylvania guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I bleed blue and white as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it should give you a good sense of pride. It should give you a good sense of confidence that Penn State is bringing in really talented guys that are really really good people too. I think a guy like Saquon is a great person. Micah seemed there were a couple hurdles to get over, but that's kind of true for anybody. But it seems like he's turned the corner, and again, he spoke he had a great sense of humility when he won the award and spoke and all these types of things. Uh, and I think you got to give credit to James Franklin because I think that is a reflection of not only bringing in guys that have exceptional talent, but also fit the culture and also fit the mold and also aspire to the belief of success with honor and representing yourself and your university and your teammates and your spouse and everybody as favorably as you can with pride and dignity and all these things. I think that's just a great manifestation of those ideals, and I'm confident they will continue because that's kind of the standard. That's something that has been ingrained and has been synonymous with Penn State football. For over half a century at this point. So I just think I think that's what it is. I think it's a good um, you know personification of those things, and I think it's going to continue. Will we have some more folks that are offensive players of the year and defensive players of the year and all these types of things? Yeah, I do because Penn State's bringing in really good players that are also equally as good people. Really hard workers, super gracious and humble for their opportunities, and those people are successful. They're successful in their careers. In this case, it's football. They're successful in their lives. They're successful in their communities, and all these things. I'm happy. It makes me happy to see that. I'm proud of those guys. I'm happy for them. I wish them nothing but the best. But I'm pretty confident saying that there will probably be more down the road here. So
Yeah.
let's see what the next chapter has in store for us.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. And it's just good to see. Yeah, like I said, man, first school, and they're both from Pennsylvania, and they're both freaks. Like that's awesome. That's like an early Christmas gift for me in February of 2022. So, Austin, on to our last story here, and then we're going to get into the trivia answers from last week. And I have a couple new trivia questions myself. I'm not sure if you have any, but last story here, spoke about it a little bit earlier. We see the numbers for these new players. They were doing their dance-a-thon, and they all had their shirts on and their numbers and everything. So to go through this, Drew Aller is number 15. We could talk a little bit about this too, and as to why I don't talk to people on Instagram in comment sections, because it really is incredible the level of intelligence that people have sometimes in these Instagram comments, which is none. Like their IQs are like -10. But Drew Aller is number 15. If you've seen him throw, he throws like Pat Mahomes. He looks like Pat Mahomes. He really does. And he is number 15. I would say Pat Mahomes is probably one of his favorite players. To adopt a throwing style like that, I would assume is because he's probably been watching Pat Mahomes. Josh Allen, kind of similar, but that's a Pat Mahomes throw that Drew Aller has. And again, that's probably why he's number 15. Number 14 is like the quarterback number at Penn State, if you want to call it that. And that's because of one man, and that's Todd Blackledge. Morelli did not live up to that number. Christian Hackenberg, he was loyal to Penn State. He didn't live up to that number. Thus far, Sean Clifford has not lived up to that number. So we'll leave that to Todd Blackledge. And I think one reason why he picked 15, one, because Pat Mahomes is probably his favorite player. Two, let's make 15 a legendary number at Penn State. The last guy I can remember that wore 15 that was of any significance was Cianciola, the third string quarterback for Penn State. Great third string quarterback. I don't mean that as a joke. He was a good quarterback. That's the thing about Joe Paterno teams. You knew pretty much every player on every position, and he was a great third string quarterback. He could have been a starter somewhere. He was pretty good. So let's make 15 a new legendary quarterback number for Penn State. All right. Singleton, number 10. I like that number for him. That's the number he was in high school. 15 and 10. I wouldn't mind seeing that for the next couple of years, that dual threat tandem there. Jerry Cross, the tight end, number 88. Might be taking Mike Gesicki's number, NFL number there. And then we've got Caden Saunders, number 7. I like that number. Your number does make you faster, and that's why Derek Williams wore number 2. Bo Pribula, number 9. Amari Evans, number 18. Zane Durant, 28. Jerry Cross, 88. Katron Allen, JB Nelson weren't there, so we don't know their numbers yet. Sutton Smith, I'm not sure if he has a number yet. But just going back on what I was speaking about, I said in the comments of this one post that he probably has this number because Pat Mahomes is his favorite player. He throws like him. Someone commented back and said he didn't pick 15 because he throws like Mahomes. And I'm like, yeah, I know. That's not what I said. Like, just to even think that someone's saying that is funny, let alone to comment that back. But I thought that was very interesting. Austin, what did you think? What do you think about these number picks for these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of guys are just doing a lot of standards, either going with like a number of significance at the position in the program, or maybe based on a favorite player, or based on whatever they wore in high school. They just want to keep it the same, like with Singleton. As far as that goes, I'm trying to remember the last. Obviously, with Prbula going number 9, a la Trace McSorley, he's been compared to a couple of times, including on this show. And I don't know. I'm trying to think of the last 15. Last guy I can think of off the top of my head came in with Trace, one Michael O'Connor, who's actually an O'Brien recruit. And then Franklin was hired after O'Brien left for the NFL, and then he also brought in Trace McSorley. And as you know, one of those two folks played more than the other. But yeah, and as far as the comparative to Mahomes, I mean, it's fair. I mean, he's got the arm, and he does make some kind of off-platform throws and things with some wonky arm angles, kind of like Mahomes does. I can also see the comparative to a guy like Allen as well, just because of his sheer size. I mean, they're both like 6'5". They're big, towering guys. So I could see that too. I think either one of those would be great aspirations to live up to. They're both really good quarterbacks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm happy. And like you said, maybe we get number 15 into the annals of Penn State lore.
Yeah, I'm looking at his throwing right now, and like, man, he's just, his release is so quick. It's right over his ear. Like, his form is good. I mean, my God, man, if this kid is not the next great, I don't know who is. But interesting to see the numbers that they picked. I could be completely wrong, but I think that's why he probably picked 15. And Pat Mahomes is a great quarterback to try and be like right now, because he's one of the best. Former MVP, just signed like a $800 million deal. So yeah, it's just good to see. And Pat Mahomes, who heard of him in college? Not many people, so Texas Tech guy. But to end the show, Austin, gonna go over the trivia answers from last week. And then, like I said, I have a couple. If Austin has a couple, he can name his too. But my one was, I'll ask you, Austin, leading receiver all time in yardage for Penn State. Who do you think it was?
Leading receiver yardage all time. I'll go Deion Butler.
It's Bobby Ingram, actually.
Is it Bobby?
Yeah. New
single single season or career?
Career.
Is it?
I'm sorry. Hold on. I believe that was career. Did I say season?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Let's see.
Live fact check.
Yep. Career 3,026 yards over his career. Single season was Allen Robinson at 1,432. That's a lot. Deion Butler was third though with 2,771. So, next question I had was single season sack record. I believe that's the one I asked.
Yes.
Single season sack record, and I'm going to give the seasons or career sack record too. But who do you think was the single season sack record holder?
Carl Nassib.
Yeah, you're right. 15.5, which, like I said last week, may surprise some of you because he was the defensive end. I mean, look, how many great defensive guys have we had play at Penn State? So, Carl Nassib, 15.5 single season. Courtney Brown is the career leader with 33. He was actually in a season, he had 13.5. So for Nassib to be above Courtney Brown is pretty insane. To be above Paul Posluszny, LeVar Arrington, I mean, there's some legendary guys that he's above there. Longest field goal kick was Jordan Stout, 57 yards. You said, who did you say? You said the right name, but it was just the wrong first name.
Yeah, I think his name is was his name Brad Barr.
It was, hold on. I had it.
Or maybe it's Chris Barr. Bahr was his last name.
Yeah, it was let's see. Chris Barr,
Chris Barr.
1975 Temple. Yeah, you said Anthony Barr or something like that, which
Yeah, I think I said that.
Anthony Barr, that's definitely a name from somewhere. But Sam Ficken had 54. Kevin Kelly had 53. But it's 57, man. That's
That's a bomb.
Not even funny. Highest point total of all time, I think that was one of yours, was Kevin Kelly at 417 total points. He's one of the best kickers Penn State's ever had. He is one of the most accurate kickers Penn State has ever had. He had 78 field goals made. Man. Third all time in field goal percentage, which was 72.9%, which is pretty good. Single season, 22 field goals. Sam Ficken actually is the leader in that, 24. Field goals in a career, 78. That is quite a few. Field goal attempts, 107 by Kevin Kelly. Tyler Davis, which we all remember him. I used to talk to him at the bar I worked at. He's a pretty funny guy. 100% extra point percentage over 3 years at Penn State. That is ridiculous. Points made career, 183. But yeah, that was it for last week. I do have new questions. I guess I can start. I'm going to keep it all with the quarterbacks. So to start out, the leader in career and single season passing yards, who is that person? I'll give you a hint. It's the same person. Single game passing yards. So most single game passing yards in one game for a Penn State quarterback. I remember this game. It was awesome. It was a great game. Passing touchdowns. Who is the leader in passing touchdowns in a career? Which is a lot. And then the record for passing touchdowns in a single game. Well, I'll just say touchdowns in a single game for a quarterback. It's held by two people, one of which would probably be a decently easy answer to pick because he was so dynamic. But those are the questions. So the last one, like I said, single game touchdowns by a quarterback. How many? And
I could probably get one of them. I don't know both. I don't think.
All right, go ahead.
Probably from the early '90s. Probably Tony Sacca might be one. But I have no idea who the other one would be. That would be one of them as my guess.
Tony Sacca is one of them. Yes, 91, 5 touchdowns against Georgia Tech.
Okay. And yeah, I couldn't have gave you the game.
And I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to think, but I kind of want to give the second one because it's pretty interesting. Because for you, Austin, I'm going to say it and you're going to be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But
I mean, if you're going to give it away, I can, you could give me a hint and give me the year.
Well, let me think. I don't want to give you the year because that's going to give it away for you.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll say he was a Michael Robinson type quarterback.
Michael Robinson type quarterback.
Yeah. And Michael Robinson was way more you think Trace McSorley was dynamic. Michael Robinson was way more dynamic. So he was kind of like that. Michael Robinson type dynamic player.
Can you at least give me like a decade?
I'll say between 95 and 2005.
Between 95 and 2005.
Late 90s, early 2000s.
And he was like Michael Rob. Well, geez. Yeah. Now I can only really think of one that was like him. I don't know, he wasn't that great of a passer, but right. Well, I was thinking Rashard Casey, but he wasn't that great of a thrower.
Yeah, it's him. Rashard.
Is it him? Yeah. He wasn't even that great of a passer.
No, he wasn't. But that's what there must be some rushing touchdowns in here too, because it just says touchdowns.
It got the total touchdowns. It got to be combo, right? Because I mean, he wasn't a great passing quarterback. From that was probably what 2000, probably because
2000.
Because didn't Mills take over in 2001, right?
Yeah, it was 2000. Rashard Casey 5 touchdowns, so there had to be some rushing touchdowns in there.
Yeah, but it gotta be. If it's him, it's got to be some rushes.
And then there's like literally everyone else on the list, which is like 15 guys, is 4 touchdowns. Darryl Clark 3 times, Anthony Morelli once, Zach Mills once, Tom Sherman, Chuck Fusina, Matt McGloin, Christian Hackenberg, Trace McSorley, Sean Clifford, all have 4. So hey man, Drew Aller, get a 6.
There you go.
6 against Ohio State.
Yeah, how about it?
Please God. But yeah, those are my questions. Austin, do you have any or no?
I think you gave and I answered one, but I think that's a good place as far as the questions are. Those are some good questions. We'll see how things go there. We'll see if I can get the rest of them next time.
Yeah, that's. So I gave you guys some questions there, but yeah, I just wanted to get those out. Let me look again, because single passing touchdowns career, single season, single game. Yeah, because it goes from, maybe it was passing TDs, maybe it was 5, because it goes that is the statistic that we're talking about. But it has to have Rashard Casey in there. It has to be overall, because I mean, talk about a guy that had potential, and just I think he was like the number 1 quarterback in his class, wasn't he?
No, I'm not sure on that one. I'm not sure on that.
But yeah, so those are the questions. That'll be it for this episode of the Mark and Austin Show. Talking about Penn State football. Covered some good topics. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Next week again, we will be doing another health talk episode. Hopefully be joined by Leslie Timble once again. Hopefully she'll be back in Canada by then, all moved back into Canada and able to settle down and do an episode with us again, because it'd be great to have her on. But Austin, once again, man, I really appreciate you joining me. It's always great to have you on. And we talked about some good topics this week. So
yeah, important stuff. I always appreciate the opportunity to come on and chat with everybody, talk some Penn State football. So appreciate all you folks tuning in, whether on Spotify or wherever you find your podcasts as well. Allegedly this episode will be on YouTube. So hello folks on the YouTube.
All right, guys. Once again, share with family or friends. We appreciate you guys listening in. But until 2 weeks from now, we are out.